Have you ever imagined that an ancient prophecy might be unfolding before your eyes, involving Pope Francis and a secret order that shapes the course of the world? In this video, you will uncover a forbidden truth, a mystery that the Jesuit order has carried for centuries. Most people hear Jesuits and think of scholarly priests. But what few know is that behind clerical robes hides a sophisticated system of spiritual control, diplomacy, and infiltration. Gunpowder in the air, blood on the ground, and there fallen, a young soldier named Ignatius de Loyola, Pamplona, 1521. A cannonball shatters his leg, and with it, his old self. But on that bed of pain, confined and unable to move, something extraordinary began to happen. The man who sought glory with swords now plunged into the mysteries of the soul. It was there, among books of saints and mystical texts, that the seed of the future society of Jesus was born. But there's a detail almost no one mentions. Ignatius was not just reading doctrine. He studied deep spiritual works, often considered unorthodox. Medieval writings, contemplative visions, reflections bordering mysticism. It was as if he was being trained, not by men, but by the silence of God himself. What he learned in that room was not only for himself, it was a code, a spiritual strategy, a manual of spiritual control. This changes everything. The Jesuit order has never been just an arm of the Catholic Church. It was, from the start, a power structure that surpassed the walls of the Vatican. They present themselves as men of faith, but act as invisible strategists. The Society of Jesus, founded by Ignatius of Loyola, spread like a subtle network through universities, governments, missions, and scientific centers. And look, this is not cheap religious conspiracy theory, but historical records, silent documents, revealing an organization capable of shaping entire cultures. If you've ever felt there is something operating above politicians, behind the scenes of faith, maybe you've already stumbled upon them. And that can completely change your view of faith, power, and history. If you feel that something beyond what they tell us is happening in the Catholic Church and the Vatican, get ready to dive into revelations few dare to tell. What lies behind Pope Francis? What is the role of the Jesuits in the greatest religious conspiracy ever recorded? Stay with me, because what you hear here can forever transform how you see the spiritual and political world. Have you ever stopped to think how a simple religious order managed to be behind the greatest movements in history without raising suspicion? And the most intriguing part, their greatest power is not in weapons or armies, but in the mastery of the human mind. Yes, the Jesuits learned early on that controlling thought is more effective than conquering territories. They don't shout, don't impose themselves. They only teach, influence, and shape. But hold on, because this is just the surface of what truly lies behind the forbidden history of the Church. Imagine a battlefield. And the strangest thing is that his earliest writings, his original spiritual diaries, disappeared, gone. Witnesses from the time say they contained instructions, symbols, and experiences that disturbed even the cardinals of the Vatican. Paris, 1534. In a small chapel atop Montmartre, 7 men kneel in secret. They were religious, yes, but they thought like generals, discreet as secret agents, sent not only to preach, but to shape nations from within. From that moment on, every step would be meticulously planned. Little did the kings of the time know that while they prayed in their courts, the forbidden history of the Church was being written by unseen hands. But if this foundation already surprises you, what comes next will surpass imagination. There was no gold, no incense, no audience, but there was an invisible fire burning in that hidden ceremony. There was born the Society of Jesus, an order that, under the veil of faith, carried the marks of a true religious conspiracy. The most intriguing part? They didn't swear obedience to the Church, but to the Pope. Not to the institution, but to the man. That already says a lot. It was as if they recognized that true spiritual and strategic authority needed to be centralized. But the vows went further. They promised to act in hostile territories, use disguises, infiltrate structures. Does that sound like evangelization? Or sacred espionage? The Jesuit order was born with the blood of soldiers and the minds of strategists. What was there that needed to be erased from history? What exactly did Ignatius discover in that bed that could threaten the structure of the Catholic Church? Hold on, because the order's foundation is even darker than it seems. This is no accident. It is part of a strategy that started centuries ago. While the world saw only priests traveling from country to country, the Jesuits were infiltrating royal courts, state councils, tribunals, and universities, all in the name of a deeper ideal: to conquer the world without needing armies. They understood something many still don't see: those who teach, rule. That's why the Society of Jesus did not build temples first. It founded schools. Elite schools with refined curricula and exclusive access. There, the sons of kings, nobles, and leaders learned more than theology. They learned to think as the Jesuit order wanted. And the most surprising? Many didn't even realize they were being shaped to serve this invisible empire. Have you ever wondered why some of the greatest spiritual movements started quietly, away from cathedrals and crowds? And that's why, from the start, this order stirred unease. Have you ever stopped to think why so many world leaders, even today, were educated in Jesuit institutions? Thus, an almost unbreakable cycle was created. They formed the leaders. And those leaders already influenced, protected, and expanded the order's own interests. What many call missionary evangelization, others call disguised spiritual engineering. The so-called Jesuit reductions seemed like holy villages, but in truth, they functioned as a laboratory for the power the Society of Jesus always sought to wield: total and silent. A silent dominion based not on force, but on controlling ideas. Spiritual, political, and cultural control. A global operation cloaked as service and piety. But hold this thought, because in the next step, they would attempt something even bolder: to form a theocratic republic independent right in the heart of Latin America. And phenomena that would be ignored or hidden by the official Catholic Church. If the Jesuits' role went beyond missions and schools, infiltrating science, philosophy, and global politics, it is an intriguing paradox. The very Society of Jesus that sought to save souls was accused of heresy, mysticism, and, believe it, exercising exaggerated spiritual control. The dispute was not only theological, but also political. The Jesuits' growing influence bothered authorities, who saw them as competitors in the game of power and control. It is as if there was a silent war between factions, where the future of the Church and the world was at stake. This shows how power can be threatening, even inside religious institutions. The Vatican, through this order, maintains research centers studying the cosmos, while intellectuals trained in their institutions influence decisions that resonate worldwide. And this is just the beginning of the story. This opens a mysterious field between the spiritual and the political, where the Society of Jesus positioned itself not only as preacher, but as keeper of mysteries that shaped local thought and beliefs. What if I told you there was a real attempt to create a Christian empire in the middle of the South American jungle, governed not by kings, but by priests? Yes, in the heart of Paraguay, Argentina, and Brazil, the Jesuit order built true model cities. Everything was planned: the music heard, the clothes worn, work hours, even daily prayers. The natives were taught not only to believe in Christ, but to live according to Jesuit molds. It was like a 17th century reality show, but controlled by strategic theologians. And the most intriguing part, it worked for a time. But European kings began to suspect. Why did those villages obey the Pope more than the crown? Was a secret theocratic republic being born there, subordinate to the Catholic Church, but controlled behind the scenes by the Society of Jesus? The answer came with gunpowder, destruction, expulsion, and silence. But hold that revelation, because even after that, the Jesuits would still resurface at the heart of power in the Americas, even before the United States became independent. Have you ever thought about how a religious order managed to take deep root in such vast and diverse territories? Long before the United States became a power, the Jesuits were already present in strategic locations like Maryland, Louisiana, and Canada, creating a network that went beyond mere evangelization. The founding of Georgetown University, for example, was not just an academic act, but a symbol of carefully planned cultural and spiritual dominion. And it doesn't to stop there. Little-known reports speak of supernatural experiences among the converted natives, visions, apparitions. But what if all this influence was just the tip of the iceberg? How to understand that an order created to defend the faith, the Jesuits, ended up being persecuted by their own brothers in the Catholic Church. Many order members were imprisoned, tortured, and silenced. A dark secret kept under lock and key in the Vatican corridors. And the most curious? Many persecuted preferred silence and even death, like true martyrs, keeping the order's secrets hidden. This makes us wonder, what mysteries did the inquisitors fear to reveal? What information did the Jesuits carry that justified such sacrifice? The complexity of this relationship mixes institutional faith with esoteric philosophy, creating a stage where light and shadow intertwine. Imagine the power that could arise from the union of an order that dominates spiritual control and a society that acts in the shadows of symbolism and secrecy. Hold this idea, because there's still more to come. Those who understand this dynamic can see that the line between allies and adversaries in the spiritual game is thinner than imagined. In 1814, the order was officially restored by the Vatican, resuming its role with even greater strength, influencing governments, universities, and even scientific institutions. After the official restoration in 1814, the Jesuit order didn't just return to what it had before. They expanded their reach, entering fields like astronomy, psychology, and modern education, mixing faith and science in unprecedented ways. This is the real power of the Society of Jesus, strategically acting in governments, universities, and research centers to shape leaders and ideas that define the world's course. The Jesuits' role becomes even clearer in the 21st century, with strategic presence in global politics, diplomacy, and even Vatican-run astronomical observatories. Want to understand how this silent influence may be changing your life today? Join me in the next chapter. A practical example? Think of the great Jesuit universities worldwide, like Georgetown, still forming political and economic elites. The election of Pope Francis was not mere chance, but the culmination of centuries of strategy, spirituality, and influence of the Jesuit order within the Vatican. And this changes everything you imagine about power in the Church. If this already surprises you, hold tight, because the next topic reveals how this new phase changed the world as we know it. The answer, my friend, may lie in the shadows of this centuries-old conflict. Have you ever imagined a possible connection between the Jesuits, an order loyal to Pope Francis? This order, so influential in spiritual and political control, was forced to disappear? Or was it a strategic step within the greatest religious conspiracy? They not only resisted, but used that period as a time of silence and preparation to emerge stronger, showing that spiritual and political control was never truly compromised. Pressure from Catholic kings, such as those of France, Spain, and Portugal, showed fear of the Jesuits' growing power. And the Vatican and the enigmatic Freemasonry, often seen as opposed to the Catholic Church? Well, secret records indicate meetings between leaders of the two orders, raising the hypothesis of strategic collaboration, or at least mutual infiltration. This makes us wonder, how far does the real influence behind the scenes go? Shared symbolism, rituals, And even structural similarities between Jesuit and Masonic educational institutions are no coincidence. Now, what if this alleged alliance is not a mere pact of convenience, but part of a larger religious conspiracy? Did you know that in 1773, the Society of Jesus was officially suppressed by Pope Clement XIV in a decision that shocked the Catholic Church and world powers? But wait, because the end seemed certain, yet history reserved another twist. Even banned, the Jesuits survived in Protestant countries like England and Russia, reorganizing into secret cells. And don't think this suppression was an isolated episode. Have you ever stopped to think how a religious order managed to reinvent itself and position itself at the center of the greatest scientific and social revolutions in the world? Imagine a silent network operating behind the curtains of major political and academic decisions, influencing revolutions and social movements without ever appearing on the front lines. And if this already surprises you, hold on, because the story doesn't stop here. Did you know that, for the first time in the history of the Catholic Church, a member of the Society of Jesus reached the throne of St. Peter? Francis is not just the first Jesuit pope, but also carries an eschatological symbolism linked to the prophecy of St. Malachi, which speaks of a Petrus Romanus, the last pope before the final times. Psychology and spiritual strategies, acting behind the scenes, leading the Catholic Church toward a new era of global influence. Want to understand how this pope is connected to the greatest religious conspiracy in history? The next topic will reveal more. What seems a coincidence gains another dimension when we consider his profound reforms in the 21st century. The Jesuits don't only wear habits, but also use big data, global diplomacy, and strategic education to shape leaders and ideas worldwide. It's no exaggeration. The Jesuits are the hand that writes the power backstage. Understanding this dimension is essential to grasp how faith and politics intertwine, and how this Jesuit order built its empire without armies, but minds. The Society of Jesus reinvented itself, operating almost invisibly, but with overwhelming spiritual and intellectual control power. And the figure of Ignatius of Loyola, the soldier who changed history's course. Have you thought about how understanding these secrets can transform how you see the world, spirituality, and the power around you? This is not just historical curiosity. It is an invitation to awaken your conscience and act more consciously before the forces shaping our time. What did he discover during his recovery? And how did he turn physical pain into a spiritual strategy? Do you want to keep unraveling these life-changing stories? If so, subscribe to the channel right now, activate notifications, and join this journey of knowledge and transformation. Let's uncover together the secrets many try to hide. Hold on, because the next chapter reveals much more about this story that doesn't fit in ordinary books. And globalist positioning, promoting interreligious dialogue, social justice, and doctrinal changes, always with the subtle signature of the Society of Jesus. Well, the Jesuits are not just preachers. They are strategists shaping education, politics, science, and spirituality on levels few perceive. This hidden presence acts as a true invisible power, controlling the Church's forbidden history and spiritual control on a global scale. And if this already intrigues, you hold tight, because behind Francis's figure is a network of Jesuit counselors highly trained in diplomacy. Their journey is living proof that real power is invisible, but felt in how ideas transform the world. And this is only the beginning. Prepare to understand what comes next. Have you ever thought how an order created in the 16th century remains more influential than ever? They are present in renowned universities, think tanks, and Vatican astronomical observatories, places where science, faith, and politics quietly intertwine. The Jesuit order's influence is not in armies, but in the human mind, in shaping thoughts, values, and decisions that direct nations' paths. This is modern dominion, done with subtlety and precision. And if I told you that this Jesuit mission started with a wounded soldier in Pamplona, and today manifests in the most sophisticated global strategy in history? Have you ever thought that a simple religious order could hide a silent global influence, acting far beyond the walls of the Catholic Church? Imagine an organization that, behind vows of poverty and obedience, manipulates decisions in universities, governments, and even the Vatican, influencing the course of nations. And if you think this is just theory, wait until you learn about the origin of this movement. Now that you know the hidden mysteries of the Jesuit order and Pope Francis's role in this forbidden prophecy, what will you do with this information? So tell me, are you willing to go further, seek the truth, and question what you've been told?